Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the MS-170 build. This is probably the biggest flop I've ever done, but also learned the most and had the most fun at the same time. You can see we got a couple of these handheld nitrous sprayers here, and we got all sorts of extra bottles. And here's a rough one of the pipes we made. But if you don't know, this was the build we ran at Sawfest. We actually made 4 of these. Ours, one for Brennan Cass, one for Garrett Barker, one for Ethan Trainer, and they were all pretty much identical. Same pipes, same type of ports. My plan all along was to get nitrous put on it, but in my procrastination and last minute rush to get them all done, didn't have enough time to do it. Well, since Garrett stayed there, I brought all the nitrous stuff down and he whipped up a nitrous setup for his. His somewhat worked. I think we damaged it a little bit in a couple of test fires that morning. But it is what it is. That happens sometimes. And during my race, I had the idea to have Garrett fog a little bit of nitrous right in the end here. Spray it. But these things, as people have mentioned, it's just a little nitrous CO2 type canister here. Not much spray in them. They only last about 7 to 8 seconds wide open anyway. But they're having issues freezing up. Cool temperatures, that kind of pressure change, they'd freeze up and wouldn't work. So I thought maybe if we could fog a little bit in, set the tune extra rich, it would work. But these things were so peaky that they never even really came on pipe. Nothing was working right. And I think they were pretty much twice as slow as stock. We would have been better off just to set the brake and seesaw through. After we already lost, licking our wounds, I'm like, hey, let's borrow an extra nitrous setup and we'll use 1 bottle per cut. Just fog it underneath the cover. So that's what we tried. 1 bottle, 1 cut, 2nd bottle, 2nd cut, 3rd bottle, last cut. And that still only got us to like 3rd place type time. But we learned a lot. Learned how to form pipes. Learned how to get the shapes cut and rolled and everything else. Learned that I don't want to do 5 pipes in 1 week. That's definitely not the way to do it. But now we know. So on this one, just a little 30cc, all sorts of duration. So in a rush to get these done, I didn't really get a ton of build footage. But I've got that little bit on the cart, we'll show you. Here's our 170, all ported up. This is probably the quickest port job I've ever done on a saw. Just because we got a pile of them. Let's see, can you see in there? We widened and dropped the intake. We raised the uppers. And we raised and widened the exhaust. Now all these durations, they're way out there, but they should match our pipe. So we'll get this all put together along with the other ones. And we'll swap on the MS-250 carb, do a little bit of tweaking. And we'll probably put some extra go-go juice on this one. We'll try and get one of those little nitrous kits all hooked up on this, see how it goes. Here's our pipe. Still need to finish welding on this one. But we got our pipe. Got the other pipes about done. And MS-250 carb, pipe, ports that match the pipe. Sorry I forgot to get the baseline. But maybe one of these days we'll throw a stock cylinder on, see if these pipes work on a stock cylinder. But we got a race in a couple days. So we're trying to get all these done. And go from there. But I made a post on Facebook about these shop carts. These are the Harbor Freight 2x3, just wheelie carts. Make a little platform, put a hard surface up here. Works great for saw teardowns. This compartment over here works great to hold all the parts. Then you can have a couple other saws either waiting or in process. That's the 572 Husqvarna we ported up for the Sawfest raffle. So that one's all done. We're taking that down with us. We'll take these 170s once we get them all done. But we're going to get these all put together, get the pipes put on, get the carb swap, and see if we can make some power out of these little guys without bending this ginormous rod here. Hey, let go. Let me see what I can see. You can see we got a pretty heavy duty connecting rod there. But we're going to keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best. So we'll get these all put together and see what kind of power they make. So basically, I found a WT type clone carb, similar size to the MS250s, but this one didn't have a choke to begin with. Added the impulses and mounted that up. Somehow it actually worked. So we gutted the back of the air filter housing. That's why we could fog the nitrous through this vent and it would pull it right into the saw. So everything else, modified the carb so we had high-low adjustment. Advanced the timing, which I think that it made more power, but something wasn't right with this. I don't know if we're that much undercarved or what, because the durations match the pipe and everything should just sing in harmony and it should run as good as it sounds, but it didn't at all. But that's all part of the learning. Like I said, first time we ever whipped up any pipes. You know, it could be something as simple as making the stinger diameter larger or longer, or make the stinger diameter shorter. And that can completely change the characteristics of this saw. But if enough people are interested, we'll come back to it. You know, because I really hate to lose. I'm not even talking about in the competition, but to have something flop as bad as this did, that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. I don't mind putting things together and dealing with okay, but these things were horrible, as you've seen from the videos. Just didn't work, didn't run, didn't make any power, couldn't cut. So I want to try and remedy that. I don't think I'm going to put a ton of time. The remedy might just be make a bigger nitrous kit and full send on nitrous and actually make it cut like it's supposed to. But like I said, let me know what you guys think about that. But I did want to touch base. I know a few people have seen videos. I posted a few videos of how bad these did, and I want to apologize to Ethan, Brennan, and Garrett for how bad these ran. It's kind of embarrassing how they did. But you guys were troopers. They were troopers getting it done. Got the cuts as far as these saws would let them go. And at the end of the day, it is all good fun. Like I said, I just wanted to come clean on these. Probably the worst build I've ever done. But we got a few good things out of it. First pipes under our belt. And we made the Dino Spooler. Let me go grab that. So this is what I'm calling the Dino Spooler. It's a big Ingersoll Rand air sander. And, you know, it's got a good bit of power for a big air tool. But the problem is these smaller peaky saws. Like, to spool up the dyno. The dyno is basically a 25-inch bar and chain, full size 3/8. So these little guys got to drag that full chain. We've got a 14-tooth sprocket on the far end, 3/4 inch shaft. Then there's a rotor inside the dyno itself. So this little engine has to spin the bar, chain, sprocket, shaft, and rotor. Get it spooled all the way up. And then there's still the drag from the water and the bearings and everything along the way. So when we're stretching, when we're shooting for the moon on these type of builds, like the Wild Thing and this, there's almost zero torque until we start coming up on the pipe range. So this one doesn't make any power till like 11.5. So with that being said, we needed something to help spool up the dyno. Big air sander, bored this out, used a set screw to go in the keyway so you'll see this slide on the shaft, and this will spin us up till 11.5, 12.5, and then these little saws can take over from there. But even though this saw was a flop, we really did need this to further dial in the Wild Thing and other low power, high strung saws. So we got our Dino Spooler, pipes built, and just the good fun camaraderie between everybody, laughing and playing with the nitrous and everything else. So we'll go do that. Alright, we made a Dino Spooler over there using a big air sander to help spool up these little saws, and then we pull it off once we get them spun up. Now this one still seems to be a little bit light all the way up top to really wind out with all the drag and everything. But we'll do a quick pull and then we'll advance the timing and see what that does. See, we're not even getting to the RPM that the pipe's hitting with the load on the dyno, but we're still going to try and advance it and see what that does. Alright, we advanced the timing. We got to put our fuel cap back on so we don't lose what little bit of fuel we have left. But we got timing advance, and we'll see what this does, and then we'll probably call it good for now. Alright, we're still a little bit limited, but we're finally spinning out. That was 15, 16,000. Like I said, this is still a 24-inch bar and chain, plus the dyno, plus everything else. So we definitely picked up power with the timing advance. That looked like a real nice pull, and we'll put that on the curve with the stock one. But we're going to call that good for now. We got to go. Alright, here we have the results for our piped 170. Now this isn't a nitrous hit, but this is what we got. Bone stock way back here. Power peaks a lot lower, a lot broader range, and we have more torque and more horsepower. All the way up to, what is that? Just shy of 10,000. After 10,000, that's when our porting and pipe really came on this 170. But we just didn't have enough to keep it all together and actually make that power work in the wood. See, this is another case where the dyno doesn't really mean a whole lot if we can't keep it working in the wood. We made good power, almost a full horse, and at the peak torque, we're really not far off peak torque. So in theory, it should work as well. But that torque and power was made so high in the RPM range and such a small little band that we couldn't even really get there. And honestly, those ports and that pipe shouldn't even be hitting until 14 or 15,000. But we didn't have enough power to spool up the dyno on the saw alone. So that's why these runs look even sharper than what they truly are, but we can't even get it spun up and use the power. So that's kind of why it was such a big flop. Just all sorts of power, just couldn't even use it. But I think maybe we'll try tweaking this and see what less duration does with the long pipe. Since we already got the pipe made, can throw some ports or maybe even a stock cylinder. Maybe that would have been the ticket, a stock cylinder with the pipe, and just stretch the power up a little bit. But let me know what you guys think. All right, thanks a lot, everyone.